everyone. My name is Natalie Hall. I'm a senior consultant here at Education Elements. I'm going to talk to you a little bit today about stakeholder engagement, particularly in the plan and align process. So quickly, I'm going to walk you through a tool that we use at Education Elements to determine who we might engage during this point, what tactics we might use to engage with them, and then really centering in on the why for this part of the process too. I'm also, after this, going to pass it over to Kim, who's going to talk to you a little bit more deeply, specifically about equitable stakeholder engagement, common pitfalls that befall us in this part of the process, and some really great tactics and self-reflection strategies you might want to incorporate as you incorporate equity more so at the forefront of your strategic planning process. So we define stakeholder at Education Elements as a person with an interest or a concern in this process. And of course, since that's such a broad definition, that means that we have so many different stakeholders who fall into that group. And that also means that each one of these stakeholders has different needs. And so as we think about particularly equitable stakeholder engagement, it's really important that we are super intentional and are meeting our stakeholders where they are. So at Education Elements, we like to use what we call the stakeholder engagement matrix, this 2x2, which helps us better differentiate who we might be talking to in our community and really making this a human-centered experience. The 4 different categories that we like to look at in this matrix is high influence, low interest, high influence, high interest, low influence, low interest, and low influence, high interest. When we say influence, all we mean is that the level of authority that the stakeholder group might have in decision-making about the plan. And when we say interest, we mean the level of impact that this plan may have on their daily lives or in their professional lives. So when we look, at the top left corner, particularly at our high influence, low interest folks, great ways to engage them are to really think about what are the quick hitting, high leverage points that they need to make sure that they're hearing on a regular basis. What are the big themes that they need to hear? What are the big takeaways that they need to move decisions forward? And keeping communication at that level. And then when we look at our high influence, high interest folks, these are really the people who we want to involve every step of the way. They're deeply impacted, and their support will really make sure that aspects of the plan will move forward. So incorporating people in this group as a thought partner, considering the expertise that they bring to the table, and really involving them in the design of the plan is major. Third, we have our low influence, high interest folks. This is a group that might be saying, I'm not very interested, or rather, I am very interested, and please don't forget about me. This is another group that often in these kind of processes and big undertakings like a strategic plan might be available to really lean in at specific points and give expertise about specific topics or requests. So think about in your district who might fall into this category. And last but certainly not least, we have our low influence, low interest folks. This is a group that is very important. All groups in the quadrant are. And something that this group might be thinking are, I'm not very interested and don't need to be involved, but don't forget about me. Especially for this group, as they might be a group that is often left out of conversations involving the strategic planning process. It's super important to make sure that we are engaging them intentionally and specifically, and how you might utilize other engagement groups to spread word to this particular quadrant about what's happening with the plan. Last thing I'll leave you with before I pass it over to Kim a little bit more is a couple tools. As you go into this document, it'll help you to articulate your why, identify your stakeholders, plot your stakeholders on the matrix that we just went through, and then explore tactics aligned to wherever your stakeholders land. Another thing that I'll mention is we have a Connect guide. Kim will go into that a little bit more deeply. And the role of this guide is to help you think even more deeply about equitable stakeholder engagement. So I wish you the best of luck. I encourage you to use the matrix in your early conversations and continuously throughout your planning process. And I'm here to support in any way you need. Thanks, everyone.
Hi, I'm Kimberly Stewart, and I'm a design principal with Education Elements, and I want to take a moment to talk about equitable engagement. When districts engage stakeholders, often they find that the voices that they hear from most frequently don't necessarily represent the community at large. Historically marginalized populations in particular tend to be underrepresented in stakeholder outreach. This trend is surprisingly common when a district does not intentionally plan for equitable engagement. Now, I want to zero in on my use of the phrase intentionally plan for a moment. You may feel like all community members are invited to share their voice, but I challenge you to consider what you are actively doing to create spaces that begin to remove some of the barriers that may create disconnects in your community. So consider how you might intentionally engage stakeholders in a way that both invites and amplifies underrepresented voices. To learn more about how you might do that and how you might intentionally plan for equitable engagement, check out our Connect and Include guides. Now, I want to leave you with a question to consider. What is one shift that you might make in your approach to stakeholder engagement to ensure that your strategic plan is both intentionally inclusive and responsive to your community's needs? Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this content, be sure to like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel.